Good evening and welcome to the November 7th, 2018 legislative session of the Town Board. And I'll officially call the meeting to order. And tonight we have the honor of having a number of scouts with us. And so all of these scouts are together from 260, Troop 260 from St. Joe's. And they're just dying to do the pledge for us. And I know they're going to do a great job. So I'm going to ask that we all rise, and we're going to look to our friends at Troop 260 to lead us in the pledge. Please, whenever you're ready, gentlemen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And they're working on their citizenship in the community badge tonight. So thank you for being here, and hopefully we can help fulfill those requirements for that badge. I'll look to our clerk. I'll ask her to please call the roll.
Cole. Here. LaFountain.
Here.
Metzler. Here. Moore.
Here.
Quinn.
Here.
Great. We do have two public hearings this evening, but before we get into those public hearings, I want to take just a couple of moments, and I would like to recognize the Shepherd Home. And the Shepherd Home's got a couple of messages for us. Shepherd Home is a comfort care facility here in Penfield. We're very fortunate for them being part of the community, and they do so much for us. I like to think that our community does so much for them. And welcome, and dying to hear about your message and all the good things that are going on at the Shepherd Home.
Thank you very much. First, I want to thank everyone for allowing me a few minutes of your time this evening. I am here on behalf of Ashley Tack and everyone at Shepherd Home. Ashley is our executive director. She has little ones at home, so sometimes it's difficult for her. So since my kids are now big ones, it was easier for me to step out. At Shepherd Home, we have 2 beds, and we care for the terminally ill, those with a prognosis of 3 months or less. We care for them, and we also care for their families. 2 things of note I would like everyone to know about this gem of the town of Penfield is that we do all of this without asking or requiring the families to give us any money for that service. And we also do not seek reimbursement from any insurance companies, any health insurance. We do this solely on the money we raise through donations and fundraisers. The other piece I would like you to know that I think is very important is that we are a debt-free, not-for-profit organization in the town of Penfield. So I'm here tonight because our year of 2018 is winding down, and at this moment we have 3 fundraisers that are going on, not 1, not 2, but 3. First is our holiday fundraiser. We are selling wreaths for $25 each. These come, they're the Fraser fir, it's a premium fir, not the balsam, and it has a decorated red bow on it. They're about 24 inches wide, and we're selling them for $25. Along with that, we're selling poinsettias, which come in a 6-inch foil-covered pot, and you can order in advance either red, white, or pink. So we would hope that maybe you think of these for hostess gifts, gifts for the holidays, just decorations for your home or office, and contact Shepherd Home for that. The end of November, everyone will start hearing about Rock the Day. It is just a way for communities to recognize not-for-profits in their community, and Shepherd Home is one of those communities again this year. This, I believe, is our 3rd year. So on November 27th, feel free to go to rocktheday.org, look up Shepherd Home, and we'd love it if you'd make any donation at all. Think of that money that you spend at Starbucks every day, and maybe instead of a cup of coffee for a month or 2, just give it to Shepherd Home instead. We'd really, really appreciate it. And thirdly, the community event that most people may know about is our annual Luminaria. This is to be held on Monday, December 10th. We are actively now asking people to donate $10 per candle and give us the name of someone in their life they would like to honor or memorialize. And we will put that name on a tea light candle, put it in a white paper bag, and we line the parking lot and our driveway at Shepherd Home. It's a way to light the night, so to speak. At the same time, from 5 to 7 that evening, we're having an open house. So people are welcome to come in, have some cookies, meet some of the board members, just get an idea for Shepherd Home and the environment. And those are the reasons that I'm here tonight. So I thank you for all the support you've given us in the past, and I welcome any and all support you can give us in the future. Thank you.
So I neglected, Kathy, to introduce you, and you didn't introduce yourself, but that seems to go hand in glove with the Shepherd Home. The Shepherd Home has a wonderful group of volunteers. They come, they're not looking for any recognition. They're really looking to provide a wonderful service to those residents and their families that come to Shepherd Home. The other piece of trivia is that Kathy lives in Hamlin, and Kathy comes from Hamlin to volunteer at the Shepherd Home. She's here this evening, and so I wanted to make sure we had the opportunity to recognize her first this evening so that she could share this wonderful message, but two, to get her home at a decent hour.
Thank you.
So I
Thank you
think
very much.
the last item would be what could someone do if they want to get a wreath, if they want to get a poinsettia?
Call or
Who do
stop
they-
by
who do they
Shepherd
call,
Home,
or-
and we will take the order. We can take the order over the phone. We can certainly take it in person. On our website, there are order forms that you can print and mail in with a check, however you would like to do it.
Excellent.
Cash, check, credit card.
Excellent.
All accepted.
And the phone number is?
585-381-0890.
Excellent.
Okay.
And again, it's the Shepherd Home.
Shepherd Home.
At www.shepherdhome.org. So,
Yeah.
Kathy, thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for being
Thank you
here,
to
and thank you for
everyone.
representing the Shepherd Home and all the hours that you put in.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a
Thank
nice
you.
evening.
We'll move on to our public hearings. I'll ask our clerk to please call the first hearing.
To allow a gold and antique jewelry store at 1833 Penfield Road in the Four Corners zoning district. The legal notice was published in the Penfield Post on October 25th, 2018, posted on the town's website and town clerk bulletin board. 24 postcards were mailed.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Horowitz, is this properly before the board?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you very much. I'll invite the applicants to the podium. As you're making your way, we'd ask that you please introduce yourself. I'll also share with the fact the board has received all the materials that you have submitted. That you gave to Jim Costello. Jim made sure all the board and the town attorney had that information. However, for the record, we'd ask for a little overview of the business, what you plan on doing, hours of operation, employees, signage, and things like that. So welcome.
Thanks. My name is Bob Tokars, or Robert, as it's on the application. And the shop in question, we're open, is 1833 Penfield Road. It's going to be a upscale gold and antique store with some collectibles. There's not going to be any employees except for my wife and I. And our hours of operation are planning Monday through Friday. We're going to be open till 5 p.m. And we're going to be open till 2 p.m. on Saturdays and closed on Sundays.
Okay. And Bob, for the record, square footage of the area that you'll be leasing?
It's just over 1,000 square feet.
And from a signage standpoint, what did you have in mind? And
There was existing signage, but they were mostly all neons, and they've been removed. We're not going to use the big neons that were in there. We're going to have a lighted LED open sign with the hours. But other than that, everything else is going to be plastic, non-lighted signs.
okay.
Yeah.
On the inside of the windows, is that?
Yes,
is that what
right
your
against the
thought is?
windows on the inside, yes.
Okay.
Have you decided on a name for the business?
Yes, well, we're leaning towards classic gold and coin.
Classical? That's good. That's good. I know when you came to work session, there was, what were you going to emphasize? You're going to do some antiques, some collectibles, the gold and
Right.
silver.
Right, we didn't want to jump the gun as far as going and getting that in writing and,
Right.
permits and everything before we have the okay.
Sure, understand. And again, Bob, for the record, could you give us an overview? I mean, you talk about classic gold and coin. But at work session, you discussed a little bit broader offering that you would have at the store.
Yeah, jewelry is going to be one of our major things. We're going to be heavy into buying gold and jewelry and selling jewelry. And we're going to include costume jewelry in as far as like vintage Victorian and even a little bit newer into the 40s and the 50s. And we're also going to have some collectibles. We'll probably have a sprinkling of some Hummels and some fancy little things and some higher-end, upscale type things like pottery and antiques that are a little more on the unusual side that you don't see very often.
And I think when you were in the work session, you talked about the fact you would be doing buying and selling, but not pawning.
No pawning. We're not going to do any loans or pawns or anything like that. And as far as what we're buying, we're going to stick strictly to gold, silver, coins, and some small collectibles and antiques. But we're not going to buy any tools or electronics or those kind of things that seem to be taken out of somebody's garage down the street.
Understand.
We're not going to do that.
Understand. All right. And thank you for that, and thank you for sharing that with us, both at the work session and here tonight. Board, I'll ask any questions for the applicant.
I don't have any. We thoroughly discussed at the work session. I think you took our advice into consideration as far as what, would work well in the Four Corners district. So I don't have any questions.
Okay. Other questions or
No, I'm
comments
good.
at this point? I'll ask about parking. I know you did reference the fact that it would be you and your wife, and at any given time or an average day number of buyers that might be in the store at any one time based on your experience.
I've checked with the previous owners, and they said at the most two people in the store at one time, sometimes once in a while 3 if they don't get taken care of fast, but very little in the store at one time. It's spread out through the whole day.
Because this property abuts the town municipal-owned parking, the parking is more than adequate there. In fact, it has been improved thanks to Mr. Costello and the work with our DPW on that to maximize the parking in that particular location.
That's correct, and we're not even going to use any of the refuse behind the stores. I guess they had some kind of an arrangement. The previous owners had an arrangement to use the pizza shop next door's dumpster, but we're gonna remove everything and take it home.
Sure, understand. Not a high generator of
No.
garbage or materials, recyclables.
No, coffee cups and stuff.
Sure, understand. Yeah, very important, coffee cups. All right, I'm going to open it up to the public, so just sit tight for a minute. I'll ask first of our clerk, did anyone sign up to speak on behalf of this particular application?
Not for this one.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on this particular matter? This is for the jewelry, antique, gold and antique jewelry store at 1833 Penfield Road. Is there anyone that would like to address the board on this particular matter? Okay. I'm going to look to Mr. Costello, our Business Development Director. Based on what you've heard this evening, Mr. Costello, is there anything that you believe should be added to the record that we haven't heard this evening? All right. And then one last opportunity for the applicant. Is there any additional information that you would like to provide to the board on this particular application?
And I think I've covered most everything I can think of. Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's talk about next steps. The next opportunity the board will discuss this matter will be next Wednesday. We'll do that here in this room at the back tables. At that time, you're welcome to join us and listen in. It's a discussion with the board and staff. But you're welcome to come and listen to that discussion. If you can't make it, I would encourage you to stay in touch with Mr. Costello, and then the board will follow up at our next meeting after that, with a final decision resolution.
Okay.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time,
Okay.
and have a good rest of the night.
Thank you.
All right, very good. I'll declare this public hearing closed, and ask our clerk if we would go on to the second public hearing.
to allow a 4,500 square foot retail building and a 5,000 square foot office building at 2146 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road in the Business Non-Retail Zoning District. The legal notice was published in the Penfield Post on October 25th, 2018, posted on the town's website and town clerk bulletin board. 35 postcards were mailed.
Great, thank you very much. And I'll ask Mr. Horowitz, is this properly before the board?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you very much. As the applicant and his engineer are getting set up, I'll indicate, as I did the previous application, that all the materials that were submitted have been given to the board for their information and review, so we do have that. However, I would ask the applicant and the applicant's engineer to give an overview of, thank you, Mr. Costello, an overview of the project, and including details around size of building, parking, setbacks, and all of that information and data. As this is part of the incentive zoning, we'll want to make sure that we're reviewing all the details of the site plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. My name is John Shields. I'm here from Hunt Engineers, representing CRLYN Acquisitions. I have with me this evening Dr. Bob Falone with CRLYN Acquisitions. And thank you. As you did mention, this is an incentive zoning project. It is we were here back in October of 2014, where we received an approval for the concept of incentive zoning. We also that evening received a preliminary site plan approval for the project. The subject parcel is a 1.3 acre piece. It's located at 2146 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. It's located just north of the Penfield Landing project, which is also an incentive zoning project to our south. What we're proposing to do on this 1.3 acre property is to develop two separate standalone buildings. The first of which is a 4,500 square foot retail building located on the west side of the site. And we are also proposing a 5,000 square foot office building to the rear or the east side of the property. Along with those improvements off property, we're proposing an access road which would lead to the north and tie in to an existing access road that runs east-west to the south of the McDonald's would probably be the best way I can think to describe that. What that road would do would be to provide cross-lots access to the east of Route 250, hopefully pulling some traffic off of Route 250 and allowing one movement I think that it will allow that I think would be very helpful is traffic leaving that McDonald's. If they want to get southbound to Route 250, they could come through this new access road. It leads to the existing traffic light located between the Doodlebugs, or I guess between the Jeremiahs and the Panera Bread. There's an intersection with Route 250 which is already serviced with a traffic light. This would allow that traffic leaving McDonald's to reach that intersection. The property is zoned business non-retail. One of the permitted uses within that zone is the professional office building that we're proposing. And there is the other use of retail use. That kind of brings us to one of our reasons for looking for an incentive zoning approval for this project rather than going through a typical site plan review with the planning board. The incentive zoning process allows your board to override the uses and the bulk area requirements that typically come with zonings such as the business non-retail. Kind of broken down in plainer English, that allows you to revise the allowable uses on the property. It allows you to revise the green space, the setbacks, the building dimensions, and the building area. And so we come to you this evening looking for approval of the site plan as we submitted it. And with that incentive zoning, the other side of that kind of, in return for that from your board, what we're proposing to do is to build that access road that I had mentioned earlier. That would be, the developer would build that road, and in exchange for the incentive zoning approval. Again, received incentive zoning approval in October 2014 and preliminary approval of the site plan. And this evening, we have a more detailed site plan for your review. I think that the staff, we met this morning with staff, and they have reviewed it. They offered some comments, some engineering-related comments, as well as some planning comments. There was nothing that that we discussed this morning that nothing that we can't overcome from an engineering perspective. The buildings obviously would be serviced with public water and public a sanitary sewer extension onto the property from the north, and that's actually in an existing sanitary sewer easement, meaning that it was always in kind of the ultimate master plan of this area that this sanitary sewer would be extended to the south, and that's, again, one of the things that we're proposing with this application. Landscaping and lighting, you're going to find, is similar to the 6,000 square foot retail building to our south, which was developed by CRLYN about 2.5 years ago. So similar features there with landscaping and lighting. And those are kind of the highlights of the project. I expect there to be questions between myself and Dr. Falone with CRLYN. We hope that we can address any questions that may come up and give the board some comfort level with the project.
Okay. Board, initial questions for the applicant?
I'm looking at the PRC memo, and would you just be able to, kind of highlight some of the comments that they've made, just so those who are watching have the understanding of some of the comments that need to be addressed?
I don't have a copy of the memo. I met with them this morning, and we went over those. If there's some specific ones, I'd be happy to kind of call them out point by point if I could.
I can call them out to you as far as by category. I mean, it's several pages. Site plan comments, grading, utility plan, lighting plan.
I can speak to a couple of the things that were discussed this morning, if that's what you're thinking. The grading, the site is existing, it slopes pretty consistently from the west, or from the east, from the west to the east, and we'll be honoring that existing grading as much as we can. That's the easiest way to develop the site. We have a series of catch basins and closed storm sewer to pick up the drainage. We're running the drainage into an infiltration system. We've done some on-site testing, and the site does support infiltration, which is typically the DEC's preferred method of handling stormwater drainage. And I think there were a couple of comments about grading. Some of our grading is extending off of the site, and we'll need permission from adjacent property owners to allow that construction to occur. We're prepared to either offer that permission, or there are changes we could make to the grading plan if necessary to keep all of the grading completely on site, such as retaining walls. But our first choice would be to secure the permission from the adjacent property owners. But there are alternates that we can do if that's not, if we can't achieve that. From a site layout perspective, we discussed this morning the idea that the setbacks, especially the side setbacks to the buildings, I think one is as tight as 4.3 feet. And so with that, we may have to incorporate different construction methods to either keep from impacting the adjacent property, or again, secure permission from the adjacent property owners during construction, a temporary easement of some type, in order to allow that building to be constructed so close to the property line. We are honoring a 75-foot setback to the residential properties to the east. And so there would be a little bit of grading, a little bit of clearing within the first, I think, 15 to 20 feet of that, but the remaining 50 or so feet of wooded area would continue to be, we don't have any desire, any reason to cut back that existing 50 feet or so buffer of wooded area between us and the residential. Those are ones that come to mind. Again, from a utility perspective, we have water already on site, right up to our front door, practically. Sanitary sewer extension is proposed. Gas and electric would service the building.
On the comments, it says to remove the topsoil, the existing topsoil, to get cross easements for the access road.
The existing pile,
That was one of the comments. Yes. Existing topsoil stockpile should be removed from the property.
we would, yeah, we would take care of that. Yes, ma'am.
And the cross easements for the, that's one thing, you're talking about the access road, you know, and the access road's always been a thing that we would like to see, but it hasn't happened because it's not in the incentive zoning area. The property, there's owners of the different properties all the way to where Dr. Falone owns property now. Like Jim Trow, he owns the property that was behind the restaurant. Do you have easements, cross easements with the different owners of that property that would be the road that would take you from 441 into?
Sure, yes, ma'am. There's an easement in place, similar to the sanitary sewer easement that I mentioned, kind of in a master planning stage, I'm going to say years ago. Those things were thought through, and there is an access easement granted to the town of Penfield from those property owners, and we'll be building our road within that easement.
Okay, so that's the town easement, but you would have to have, wouldn't you have, no, you wouldn't have to have, okay. All right, so that'd be the town. So it would go to M&T, not to the McDonald's, right? Because that's where the road starts. There's an M&T access, it's beyond, it's east of McDonald's. And that takes you in, there's a sign that says these different properties are in there, and...
Like through the parking lot, is that what you're referring
No,
to?
from Penfield Road. And then it would take you down behind, in the back, the access road behind, and it would take you all the way to Jeremiah's.
This, if I understand the question correct, this road will lead, the road that we would construct with this project will lead to an existing access road. My assumption is that those easements are in place over that road. To be honest, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
So I think the point is that
Not the clarity.
there is common access between McDonald's and M&T Bank. And then there is today a road that crosses the Trow property to Dr. Falone's property, not in the best shape, behind the former Perkins restaurant and then the family restaurant, which is in pretty rough shape. But all of that, all of those easements are in place, cross-access easements are in place. You're essentially looking to extend or rehab is probably the better way to put it, rehab that road that's back there. And then someone from McDonald's can tie into it, someone from M&T. If someone elects to come off of 441, they can get back there. And then that roadway will run essentially from north to south, depending upon which area you're going. And you'll be able to traverse back through there to hit any of the businesses that are along there. So whether it be Panera Bread, Jeremiah's, or anything in between, you'll have the ability to hit those various businesses, places of business.
Yes, sir. That's a great description. Precisely.
So one of the things that jumps out at me is that it seems like the buildings have grown since we last took a look at them. So is that a bad eye that I have, or has the buildings gotten a little bit bigger square footage wise?
Building in the front.
So Dr. Follett, if you will, because we are taping this and for the record, and plus we want to see your smiling face on TV.
Thank you. Bob Falone, I'm the owner of the property. The retail building has grown about 300 square feet. It was originally around 4,200 square feet. The office building in the back was always 5,000.
So the reason I mentioned that is my other observation is that as I look at the property, not so much on that one, but on this drawing, there's an awful lot of asphalt and an awful lot of roof area, and not as much green. And so one of the questions that I have is how are we satisfying the requirements of the green, and is that all focused towards the rear of that property to meet minimum requirements of lot coverage?
As a whole, the property is 30.8% green. This property is also, I failed to mention this is within the Route 250-441 corridor, which offers some relief from the green space requirement when you do have the shared access like we're going to have through the property. So the minimum of green space is 30%, and we're at 30.8 for the whole parcel. And like you stated, the majority of that is focused to the east side, kind of where it seems to be most valuable in buffering us from the residential properties.
So I know that there are at least some neighbors here that will have an interest on that. So let's take a minute, if we could, and just concentrate on the plans for that 5,000 square foot office building. The disturbed area, you did speak a little bit about the drainage. There's a couple of options for the drainage, and then certainly the buffering. And what this board has heard over the years as other development has taken place along this stretch is the concern about proper buffering from our residents and our neighbors, the lighting concerns, noise, obviously, all of those types of things that may have a direct impact on the residential area just to the east of that. And then as recognizing you're going to have to do some clearing for that building, what does the landscaping look like to help either replace or provide some buffering that might be taken away?
Sure. As I mentioned, the setback to the building itself is around 76 feet. Within that 76 feet, I would categorize it as if we begin at the easternmost property line of our site, we're going to keep between 40 and 50 feet of the existing wooded area in place. There's no impact to that proposed whatsoever. Beyond that 40 or 50 feet, we are grading up to the foundation of the building. Right now, we do not show any additional landscaping proposed behind the building. We wouldn't be opposed to adding some, similar to what they've done to the south. I think the DHD Ventures building, or maybe even years before that was built, they did put some evergreens in place to provide some additional screening, and we would certainly consider something like that in addition to leaving that 40 or 50 feet of existing screening. Lighting right now, we do have a light proposed over just kind of a light, like a coach light over top of a man door coming out the rear of that building. I believe that rear door is required for code, and I can look into that. If a door is not required in order to meet code requirements, we would remove the door and have no need for lighting at that time. All of the lighting on the site is dark sky compliant, including the lighting that's mounted on the building. So we currently show a light, but I could investigate whether that light can be removed from the plan. I think you mentioned drainage. Right now. The site drains from west to east, and the drainage does cross over that property line, our property line, into the rear yard of those residential properties. It's our intention with this development to use infiltration to capture and treat the smaller, more frequent storm events. When the larger events come into place, infiltration kicks in to a certain degree, but then there is I would call it overflow beyond that infiltration. It's still kept to levels that are below the existing levels. What we're doing, instead of allowing that developed discharge to leave across and enter those residential properties, we are sending it to the north. There's an existing water course on the Trowel property. We definitely do need to secure the permissions in writing from Mr. Trowel or find another alternate. But right now, it's our intention to essentially we'll take 80 to 85% of that runoff that leaves our property currently and goes into the residential. We'll take that out of play. They'll still see runoff from the wooded area because, again, we're not impacting those grades, but we are bypassing much of the site that goes there now. I would say, again, 80-85% of that site is going to go in a different direction. It's going to be controlled. It's going to be cleaned and controlled before it goes in that direction. But I would suspect that from the residential properties, we'll see less. I know that they'll see less drainage at the completion of this project.
So if I may just summarize, from the professional office building, anything from the east of that will go easterly and then northerly into that. Is that what I heard or understood? So I just want to make sure we're both on the same page.
Sure. Everything east.
So yes, everything east, easterly of that building up to the undisturbed wooded area will kind of be directed to the north, and then from the area that's undisturbed will just continue to drain as it has.
To be clear, everything east of the building, including where we're going to grade, that will all go to the east.
Okay.
But it's as you can kind of see, it's proportionally, it's about 10 to 15% of the entire site. Everything, including the roof of the building, from that point to the west will be redirected and will no longer go across that east property line as it does today.
Okay. All right. All right. Board, other questions at this point? Could you say a little bit about the parking, John, if you would? You've got it laid out, and based on square footage, based on what you're seeing for numbers and activities. You know, one of the things this board has to take a look at is that you know, we always plan that these businesses will be 100% successful that start up, but from time to time a business will close and then a new business is proposed to be put in. So as I take a look at your map, you indicate on the front building, what I'll call the retail, there is a proposed tenant on one portion of it, and then you've identified a Metro Mattress. And if something were to change and a higher use might come in, say a few words about the parking that you've got, and because that would be one of the things that this board, and it would come before this board, would have to take a look at to make sure that there's ample parking and we're not impacting adjacent properties.
Sure, absolutely. I'll start off by, whether I mentioned it or not, one of the options for the board with the incentive zoning approval is to circumvent the parking requirements that are written into the code for what I would call typical development. That said, the town's requirement for retail parking in any district is one space for 200 square feet, which, if we crunch the math, it comes out to a required number. If that entire office building, or I'm sorry, retail building, the 4,500 square foot retail building is in fact a retail use at 200, at 1 space per 200. It was just 5 per 1,000. 23 spaces would be required. And we're offering 26 spaces for that property, including, I think, 2 handicap spaces. So we're meeting the code kind of by right, and again, as I mentioned, the board has the ability, the discretion to revise that, but we are meeting the code for that requirement.
And
One
then for the
space per
office,
200.
and for the office building?
Yes, sir, the office building has a requirement of 1.5 spaces per 200 square feet, and the size of that building, crunch those numbers, we were required to have 38 spaces, and we are offering 31, including 2 handicap spaces for the office building.
So it's 31 plus 2, or 31?
31 including the 2
that
handicap
included
spaces,
the
31 total, yes, sir.
Okay.
So we are looking for a bit of relief in the parking requirement for that use and for that size building.
Okay. All right. Board, not seeing any further questions. I know we do have some neighbors here, and I'll ask our clerk if she would identify anyone that has signed up to speak on this particular project. And again, this project is at 2146 9 Mile Point Road, Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. If you didn't sign up, we'll give an opportunity to anyone that did not sign up. So first time, those that signed up.
Mike Young.
Hi, Mike.
Hello, Board. You've seen me before for all of these, so you'll probably see me again. The same things that I always talk about, the buffering and the lighting and that kind of stuff. I hate to break it to them, but there is no longer 50 feet of woods back there. It was probably shortly after they met with the board in April. That was all cleared. There's probably 5 feet left of woods there. So I think there's going to need to be some more extensive work done back there to put some kind of buffering back there for the neighbors. The site to the south, they had put trees in there years before they put that building in. They had years of growth on them, and they were trees that were evergreens. There's maybe a handful of trees back there, and you can see right through. So I just ask that they do a little bit more work behind the building to buffer the neighbors, and definitely make sure that that runoff is taken care of properly, because I know my neighbors on both sides have worse drainage than I do. They get flooding in their basement. Luckily, we've been pretty dry, but if that increases, I get a little concerned about that.
And Mike, when you say your neighbors, neighbors to the north, south, or both?
So, I'm right here.
Yep.
This neighbor definitely gets water in their basement.
Okay.
And the neighbor to the other side of me, because basically the way that it's shaped, we have kind of like a tiered yard.
Okay.
We have rocks and trees in the middle of ours. They don't. Both of their properties just slope straight down,
Got
so
it.
they get the runoff.
Okay.
So, yeah, those are just my concerns. The lighting is fine. If the light that they put in the back of the building is like the other building, it should be fine. It's really not bothersome. The only thing that bothers us is if they're there late at night and they leave the lights on and the shades up. So that's the only other thing I ask is if they're going to be there later into the night, just close the blinds.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Right? And there'll be a separate public hearing for the actual uses of these buildings, or is this approval for everything?
So as we're taking a look at this, what the board will do is we'll move forward as it relates to the office building. You know, the office building is kind of by code pretty well defined. And then up front, there is one business that's being proposed, and then the second business, historically in this particular area, because this board does have the responsibility, that comes back to us for review. And, you know, it could be a review by the board at a work session, still notifying neighbors. It may require a public hearing. Again, we may talk a little bit about some additional uses in that particular area as well.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Thank you for coming in. Is there anyone else that signed up to speak? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this item before the board? Okay, before I get back to the board and to the applicant, I'm going to look at Mr. Costello. Mr. Costello, is there anything that you believe should be added to the record that has not been discussed this evening?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Costello, Town of Penfield. Getting back to Mike's comment for a second, when we approved the Doodlebugs and the DHD Ventures buildings, we did create a swale behind their properties to ensure the water shedding to the east was picked up and drained away from the property. That's probably why the neighbors don't, and you don't have the water that the one neighbor behind the site has. And I'm sure John will be looking to do the same kind of thing to direct that water northwards towards the pond, which would solve that problem for your neighbors. The other thing I want to talk about is, John may not have mentioned it, but the 31 parking spaces that he's relating to for the office building, the board has, and probably will in this case, require cross parking and access to the properties to the south, which would then allow them to have a 20% reduction in the parking for the property that they have now to accommodate their uses. That is one of the conditions of shared parking, that you do get a reduction. But the other part of that is that the entire property south of them will also have access to parking for that site as well. The last thing is, there was probably some confusion relating to the PRC comment regarding the pile of topsoil on the site. Dr. Flown did remove that pile of topsoil that we were concerned about from a period of time ago. But there have been people dumping materials on that site for one reason or another. There's no access, there's no point where you can stop them from coming in because of the property you were talking about, the M&T Bank is wide open. So that's probably what the PRC comment related to, was some dumping on the site for topsoil.
Okay.
There is some topsoil that was there as part of the 441 road improvement project. It's been sitting there for a period of time since that project was completed. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jim. I'll look to the board. Any further questions,
I just have
comments?
one question sort of on the internal flow, I guess, of the parking lot. It looks as if to the west of the retail building and certainly to the west of the office building, there are some stubs for the parking on the northern property line. Is the intent at some point down the road, hopefully, to have some form of easement into the northern properties, and these are just temporary stubs, or is this sort of like this property is encapsulated and kind of closed off as is? Sort of as if you look towards the office building on the south side, you have those two parking spots from the office building to the south, and they kind of end in a little stub with no access there. I mean, I'm not advocating for access at that point. I'm just curious if each property is going to sort of be closed off, or is the intent to have some form of parking flow there to the north?
Yeah, with the current application, that would be closed off. It would be a curb running along the face of that. Those areas are, well, they do look like they offer an inviting stub for the future, and maybe that's an option as the adjacent properties developed. They're in place to literally to provide a place for those cars to back up into and pull out of a space, but they also could accommodate the function that you're mentioning of cross lots access, depending on what happens to the north. There's no plan right now. We're not part of a larger plan at this moment.
Okay. The only other thing I would mention, and I mean, we received the comments earlier today. I haven't had an opportunity to review them in depth, but it looks as if you have to the east of the west and east, if we're to the east of the retail building, the parking has a little bit of a circular flow there on the north side. Mm-hmm. But to the west of the business building, office building, it doesn't have that same flow. So if a car were to drive up into the front of the building and not find an access point, they would have to then in reverse back out. So there's no way for a car to kind of move around. And if you take it one step further, if you have to have an emergency vehicle in there, same situation, mm-hmm. where there's just limited ability for maneuver. I'm not sure, again, I'm not sure if there were any comments from the fire marshal and the PRC memo. I'd have to review that, but I certainly would like to have them weigh in and at least take a look at the flow of that particular portion of the parking lot based on where you have the current parking spots and flow. So that's why I asked if there was plans in the future to, but it sounds as if this is sort of this is the end of the parking lot for at least now.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, there's been no comments from the fire marshal that I'm aware of, but if there are, we'll certainly address them. As far as traffic that comes into the bay that's closest to the building, they would have that striped out area to back up and turn around if they needed to. We could consider having a similar situation in the bay to the west. Talk about either striping out one of those spaces or adding a different area that a car could more easily maneuver and get turned around if in fact all those spaces were full. Certainly consider that.
What kind of offices will be in there? Will be sort of like a medical where you have patients coming and going during the day? Is it going to be more of like a law office or a tax office where you have people park and stay for 8 hours?
So part of our wellness program will require you to get up and speak into the microphone.
Right now, half the building would be, we're talking to a physical therapy group.
Okay.
The other half, we don't have anyone yet.
Yeah, I mean, again, just
But it's
that,
not just medical, it could be
Okay.
office or medical.
okay. I don't have any further questions.
Okay. Other questions, board, at this time?
Yeah, just a couple questions, Mr. Supervisor. I know probably in a couple minutes you're going to talk about next steps, which is kind of standard that you do with public hearings, but I just would certainly encourage the next time that we look at this, it looks like there may be some discrepancies over buffering and what is the existing buffering, that the applicant come to the next meeting with a buffering plan between that building to the east, the office building, and the residents' backyard. It looks like they abut each other, and I think those residents deserve to see what the applicant's proposing as far as a robust buffering plan between the building and their backyards. The other thing that I think Jim Costello alluded to, too, is it's my belief that on development projects like this, that drainage should not negatively impact any other properties around what's being proposed. And so certainly I would ask the applicant to take another hard look at that drainage east of the building and to ensure to this board that water is not going to just drain into the backyards of the neighbors along Braunston Avenue or Braunston Road. Thank you.
Anything else? Then taking my cue from Mr. Moore, next steps, and I apologize, one last opportunity for the applicant. Is there any additional information that you would like to add to the record that you haven't already added to the record that you believe is pertinent to this project?
Only that I will be out there between now and our next meeting together, assessing what tree cover is out there currently and making sure that that's correctly indicated on the plan, and we'll come back with a better understanding of what type of buffering we're proposing to the residential properties. No problem.
Okay, great. Thank you, John. Doctor?
Yeah, I have a question on buffering. I mean, are we buffering the building or are we buffering the noise? Because I think in the beginning when, like, Jeremiah's came in and Panera, it was all about lighting and noise. And, you know, a 100-foot wide building is hard to buffer with trees. I mean, during the wintertime, there's no leaves. My feeling is the buildings are the better buffer. And Mike, is Mike still here? I mean, you could, has the noise level gone down since the medical building?
Yes, there's much less noise.
And light, and you probably don't see the lights as much.
Clean the lights in the building.
So I mean, we could put 100 pine trees back there and you're still going to see the building. I mean, so, you know, when you're asking what's the buffering plan or landscaping plan, you have to take into consideration what you're asking for.
So you make an excellent point, and we've got this great individual that we have as part of our staff, Bruce Zaretsky, that we rely on and utilize. And so are we looking to cover the building 100%? Probably not. That unless we were to put up a wall, that probably would not be realistic to do. But again, taking into account that we have neighbors to the east, they enjoy their backyards. When they look out, they may not necessarily, and I'm sure the building that you build is going to be a very nice looking building. Folks still don't necessarily want to just look at a building. They'd like to have something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. And so to answer your question, there is a combination of buffering the building and some noise consideration, and then to provide the appropriate quality of life for the neighbors themselves. So
I agree.
And again, I think Bruce Zaretsky, great resource, and I know he works very well, with not only developers, the town residents, that make sure that it's a win-win for everybody.
Okay.
Okay. So next steps will be, the next opportunity will be discuss this next Wednesday. Again, as I said, the previous application, you're welcome to attend, listen into that discussion. If you can't be here, understand that as well. You can watch it on PCTV Channel 12 or now PCTV Channel 1301, 2, and 3. Or you can contact Mr. Costello, and he'd be more than happy to fill you in with that as well. But it sounds like, John, at the request of the board, there's a few things that you're going to be looking to do, and you want to be getting some things in for the board to take a look at. And so that we would look forward to seeing any of those modified or addendums to the plan overall. Okay. Seeing no further comments or discussion on this matter, I'll declare this public hearing closed, and we'll continue in with our agenda. Thank you. Appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is communications and announcements, and I'll start with Mr. Quinn, if I could, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, everyone. Two announcements. First, with the heating season upon us, RG&E has asked the town of Penfield to remind residents to be aware of the dangers of carbon monoxide, a colorless, odorless gas that can quickly harm you and your family. Exposure to CO can cause flu-like symptoms, including headache, dizziness, weakness, nausea, and loss of muscle control. Prolonged exposure to carbon monoxide can lead to serious illness and even death. To help keep you safe, RG&E recommends that you use carbon monoxide detectors, have a professional check heating systems, chimneys, flues, and vents once a year, never use an emergency generator indoors, including the garage, and never use a natural gas stove, oven, or charcoal grill as an indoor heating source. And second, we are approaching the 100th commemoration of the end of World War I, and I do have a resolution that I'd like to read into the record this evening. Whereas a century ago, 4.7 million American families sent their sons and daughters off to World War I, and whereas the resources of our entire generation were brought to bear on the war effort, and whereas 116,516 Americans gave their lives in the war, and more than 200,000 were wounded. And whereas Penfield, New York sent 91 young men to World War I, 6 did not return home. 3 died of illness and 3 died of battle wounds. 2 of the 3 were brothers. And whereas the tolling of bells is a traditional expression of honor and remembrance. And whereas in November 2018, the world will commemorate the 100th anniversary of the armistice that ended the fighting in World War I at 11 a.m., November 11th, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. And now therefore be it resolved that the United States World War I Centennial Commission and the town of Penfield, New York, do hereby call upon all Americans across the nation to toll bells in remembrance of those who served in World War I at 11 a.m. on November 11th, 2018. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Mrs. Messel.
I have one announcement this evening. Winter snow and ice will soon be upon us. Our Department of Public Works is prepared for the season and ready to keep Penfield Road safe for all who travel in our town. DPW crews manage 18 plow routes covering 445 miles of roads with our 21 plow and salt trucks. We also plow 45 sidewalk miles with 3 plows. Even with all these resources, we depend on residents to do their part to keep roads clear and safe for all. With that in mind, please note the following winter rules and safety reminder. Winter parking rules in the town are in effect November 15 to April 1st. This means no parking is allowed on all roads and highways between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. to allow DPW crews to safely and effectively maintain our roads. Vehicles in violation of this rule will be towed at the owner's expense. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one announcement, and this is a concern that has been brought to our attention from both the school districts as well as Monroe County Sheriff's Department. And their concern is this very dangerous situation of cars passing school buses with their lights on, picking up or dropping off our children. The Monroe County Sheriff's Department has indicated that they're going to step up their patrols. They are very concerned. If they, in fact, find anybody, they will be ticketed. They'll have a very significant fine. There will be points against their license. So we want to make sure that we do this because we want to protect our children. Those children and grandchildren that are coming and going to school, we want to make sure they get to school safely and they get home safely. So if you happen to be one of those individuals that just don't have the time to stop, don't be surprised if you do get stopped by lights and sirens and issued a ticket. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The Penfield Recreation Department, with assistance from the Recreation Master Plan Committee, is seeking feedback to better serve the public and update the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Please take a few moments to complete a brief survey, which can be found at penfieldrec.org, regarding the Town of Penfield's recreation programs. All responses will be included in a full report, which will include the results of needs assessment, general public input, and focus group sessions. The Recreation Department greatly appreciates your time and support, so if you can spend just a few minutes and fill out that survey with some of your ideas and thoughts, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, residents may begin reserving Penfield lodges and shelters for the 2019 year on Wednesday, December 5th at 10 a.m. Lodges and shelters may be reserved online or in person. However, we highly recommend reserving online. You need a Penfield Recreation household account in order to reserve, so please make sure you do this before the December 5th date to avoid any delays. For more information and to obtain that household account, please go to penfieldrec.org. Thank you.
I have 2 announcements and 1 extra thing I wanted to mention. The Penfield Players will be holding their last performance of Over the River and Through the Woods on Friday, November 9th and Saturday, November 10th. Shows will be held at 8 p.m. at the Community Center on Baird Road. For tickets, visit penfieldplayers.org or purchase a ticket at the door. And my next community chat will be Tuesday, November 20th at 5:30 to 7 in the new book area at the Penfield Library. I also want to mention, Andy mentioned about the survey. The survey's at penfieldrec.org, and it closes on Friday the 9th, so the committee can go over all the results. But there shall be a public information meeting also on Thursday, November 29th, from 7:15 to 8:30 at the Penfield Community Center in the community room. So that's something, we don't have a meeting here before that, so I wanted to make sure that got out there, that November 29th we'll have a public information meeting of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Thanks.
Okay. And so just, I want to note for that November 29th session, that's kind of an open forum for folks to come in,
Yes.
speak with the committee members. It's not a formal meeting, but an opportunity folks can come and drop in,
Right.
spend some time.
It's
Okay.
all part of the master plan, that they have a master plan committee of employees and residents that get together. We're doing the survey go to the residents to see what the input is of what they feel how the recreation programs are working and get that kind of input. But then there'll be an information meeting where you can continue to talk a little more about what you feel you'd like to see in the community. And also, we can give back the results of what has been come forward through the survey.
Okay, great. This brings us to the next item on the agenda. This is the exciting part. This is one of two opportunities to address the board on any matter. So if you happen to be in the audience, you can come to the podium to speak to the board or address the board or ask any questions. You can call in at 340-8771. You can log on at penfield.org. This is a session that if there's anyone from Troop 260 that has a particular question, wants to know something, or for the board to fill you in on anything that's going on around the town, we would be happy to do that. So with that, I'll ask our clerk first, has anyone signed up to speak at public participation?
No, they have not.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on any matter?
No?
There is a second opportunity.
And so that's a good point. There are two opportunities. There's another one at the end of the agenda. So if you need to get that the thought in your head, a little bit of courage or something else, that you can do that as well. All right, we'll move on to additions and deletions to the agenda. I'm going to recognize Councilwoman Metzler.
Thank you. I have two additions to the agenda this evening under new business. Moving for 18T-203, authorization to sign a multimodal agreement with New York State DOT, and 18T-204, authorization to sign a conventional sum-municipal agreement for snow and ice services between the town and New York State DOT.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, I will second both those additions to tonight's agenda.
All right, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. They'll appear as 203 and 204 at the end of our agenda. Before us, we have two sets of minutes. I'll take them in order. First, we have the October 3rd, 2018 minutes. I would entertain a motion of approval for those minutes.
I move that the minutes of October 3rd be approved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion on those minutes. Seeing no discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes.
Additionally, we have the October 10th, 2018 minutes before us, and I would entertain a motion of approval for those minutes.
Moved.
And second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion by the board on those minutes. Seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote of approval.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes.
Since our last meeting, has the board, town clerk, or town attorney received any petitions?
No.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to resolution by function, and we'll start with law and finance, please.
Authorize the supervisor to sign lease agreement with the Penfield Symphony Orchestra.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town of Penfield desires to enter into a lease agreement with the Penfield Symphony Orchestra to provide office space at the Don Mack Building at 1587 Jackson Road. Now be it resolved that the supervisor is authorized to sign a lease agreement with the Penfield Symphony Orchestra for office space located at the Don Mack Building beginning August 1st, 2018 and ending December 31st, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. Budget amendments and transfers.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the registrations and attendance for programs at the Recreation Department require an increase in appropriations for playground and youth accounts from program collection fees. Whereas the town engineer required additional funds for the installation of a new sidewalk on Empire Boulevard, and funds for this work are available in the sidewalk escrow account. Whereas the director of public works requires additional funding for tree maintenance, and funds are available for work to be completed on behalf of the Penfield Central School District. Now therefore be it resolved that the 2018 budget amendments and transfers be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. And so just a few more words around this particular resolution. Whenever the town sets a budget, if we go over a particular line item, We just don't have extra money sitting around to cover that. So what we have to do is we may take money from a different line item, or if we've gotten some additional revenue that we hadn't planned on that had come in for that year. At the end of the day, we have to make sure that our budget is balanced as we do that, and we have to do that within our existing budget that we adopt each year, and not reach into a pot of money that essentially does not exist to cover those costs. Further discussion? Seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. Budget amendment in the library fund.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas at their monthly meetings, the library board recognized the receipt of donations received during the third quarter of 2018 in the amount of $221.01 to be used for library activities. Whereas the town board desires and have an up-to-date budget in relation to current appropriations and revenues. Now therefore, the following 2018 budget amendment be approved. Under revenue, $221.01, and appropriations of $221.01.
Thank you. Discussion? See no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. Setting a public hearing for the issuance of a special permit to allow a home automation office at 2025 Penfield Road.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas an application has been received by the Penfield Town Board for the issuance of a special use permit pursuant to Chapter 250-5.4-D5 of the Code to consider allowing a home automation installation sales and service office at 2025 Penfield Road. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Penfield shall hold a public hearing at the Penfield Town Hall on December 5th, 2018 at 7 p.m. on said date to consider said application and hear all persons interested in the question of the issuance of this special permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? This property is located right on the corner of Penfield Road and Sanders Farm Drive. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. Purchase of a 2019 International 4300 SBA 4x2 with a Timco Model 600 BAH air sweeper.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the Director of Public Works desires to purchase one, 2019 International 4300 SBA 4x2 with a Timco Model 600 BAH air sweeper from the Onondaga County contract from Regional International Corporation for a total cost of $249,432. And whereas the Town Board approves the total funds of $249,432 be appropriated for said purchase from the Highway Restricted Fund balance. Therefore, be it resolved that the Director of Public Works is authorized to purchase the vehicle with the street sweeper attachment, and be it further resolved the following amendment to the 2018 budget is approved. Revenue in the amount of $249,432 to heavy equipment appropriations, $249,432.
Thank you. Discussion? So who would have thought it would cost $249,000 to buy a street sweeper? Pretty expensive things, but something that is very needed and very necessary. And a piece of equipment like that will last about 12 to 15 years, depending upon usage and things like that. Okay, seeing no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. Roadway dedications for 2018.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the following developers or owners have made application to the Highway Department of the Town of Penfield for the final dedication of town highways in the town as noted in the following and described more fully on the subdivision plat maps listed below, which have been approved by the Board of Jurisdiction and have dedicated and released the necessary lands owned by them for these proposed highways. Penfield Creek Street LLC, Capstone Subdivision, all of Capstone Rise. Onto Tomaso Homes, the Water Song Subdivision, Section 5, a portion of Water Song Trail. 9 Mile Point Associates LLC, Abington Place, Section 6, the remainder of Silver Lace Way and Maya Drive. Now therefore be it further resolved that the town board accepts the dedication of the roads or portions thereof as described above, all in accordance with Section 171 of the Highway Law of the State of New York.
Thank you. Discussion. See no discussion. A roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization for the town board to accept a Monroe County block grant for an additional $55,000 for the 2017 LaSalle's Landing Park Improvement Project and execute an amended agreement.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town of Penfield is a member of the Monroe County Community Development Block Grant Urban Consortium, and whereas the town of Penfield has entered into a cooperation agreement to participate in the community development program and comply with the laws and requirements regulating the program. Whereas the town of Penfield, after consultation with the public, has identified an appropriate use of potential community development funding in the town. And whereas the town of Penfield has made application to the Monroe County Development Administration for a project that satisfied its requirement. Whereas the Monroe County Development Administration has reallocated monies in the amount of $55,000 towards the 2017 LaSalle's Landing Park Improvement Project in the town of Penfield. And whereas the town of Penfield has deemed it in the best interest of the town to accept this grant, now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Penfield accepts the grant and encourages the implementation of this project. Now therefore be it further resolved that the town of Penfield Supervisor R. LaFountain is authorized to execute an amended agreement with Monroe County for the project and the grant.
Thank you. Discussion. See no discussion. A roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Purchase and installation of a new phone system.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas there is a need to replace the town's phone system, which is in excess of 20 years old, and whereas the equipment and installation of the phone system is available, utilizing the New York State bid at a cost of $61,787. Now therefore be it resolved that the Director of Public Works is authorized to purchase and have installed the new phone system.
Thank you. So this is an item that was budgeted in the 2018 budget, and seeing no further discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Advertising for bids for janitorial services for 2019 for the Town Hall and Town Library.
Moved.
Second.
Be it resolved that the Director of Public Works is authorized to advertise in the manner prescribed by law for sealed proposals to furnish the town of Penfield with the following: janitorial services for the Town Hall and the Town Library. Now therefore be it further resolved, the service contract shall be in accordance with specifications prepared by the Director of Public Works. Sealed proposals are to be received in the office of the town clerk until November 30th at 11 a.m., and there and then to be opened and read publicly by the town clerk.
Thank you. Discussion. See no discussion. A roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Budget amendment for the box field at Rothfuss Park.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas sealed bids were sought and a contract awarded on November 1st, 2017, totaling $98,175 to All Sports Enterprises to provide the Department of Public Works with a box turf field. And whereas the town received grant funding through Senator Funke for a portion of this project totaling $80,000, and whereas the town will take receipt of the materials before year end for installation in 2019, be it resolved the following 2018 budget amendment is approved. Revenue $57,700 to the appropriations for Rothfuss Park Fields, $57,700.
Thank you. Discussion.
I'll
See no-
just note,
Great,
Mr.
apologize.
Supervisor, it's a box field. Of course, I have to make a note about this. We're excited to finally have the box field for lacrosse and other sports at Rothfuss Park come to fruition. I would just like to recognize, as stated in the resolution, Senator Funke really came through for the town again as he has with other projects as well. You may have noted that this was a box turf field that, with the cost totaling $98,000, and Senator Funke was able to secure and bring back to the town of Penfield $80,000 to be used towards this box lacrosse and sports field. So we certainly appreciate our partnership with Senator Funke and for him coming through and making this project possible in the town of Penfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So with that, I'll ask for seeing no further discussion, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
All right. This brings us to old business. Is there any old business to come before the board this evening? Seeing none, we do have 2 items of new business, and I'll ask our clerk to please read those resolutions.
Authorization to sign a multi-model agreement with New York State Department of Transportation.
Moved.
Second.
Be it resolved that the town supervisor is hereby authorized to sign a master municipal multimodal program agreement with New York State Department of Transportation for funding of $25,000 for a drainage system repair or replacement on Panorama Trail from Browncroft Boulevard to Penfield Road. The agreement is to be reviewed and approved by the town attorney.
Great. Thank you. Discussion? This is one of those items that, one of the rare gifts that we get from the state of New York. They had some additional dollars to put towards infrastructure, and we had the opportunity to apply for and receive $25,000 for that. So we will take that and put that towards the project on Panorama Trail. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Excuse me. Authorization to sign a conventional sub-municipal agreement for snow and ice control services between the town of Penfield and New York State Department of Transportation.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the New York State Department of Transportation owns, operates, and maintains a highway system in the town of Penfield, and whereas the state DOT desires to extend an agreement with the town for snow removal and for salting and treating state roads for the purpose of removing the danger of snow and ice, and whereas the town has appropriate snow and ice removal equipment and sufficient snow and ice control personnel to contract with the state DOT for snow and ice control services. Now therefore be it resolved that the supervisor is authorized to sign a conventional sub-municipal agreement for snow and ice control services between the town of Penfield and the New York State Department of Transportation for the dates July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2021. This agreement is to be reviewed and approved by the town attorney.
Right, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Great, thank you. This brings us to our next public participation. So we've got at least one big scout that might address the board on a matter. Ed Lindskog. An old scout. Well, I was going to say a big scout, Ed.
A classic scout.
Not an old scout. So in case you 3 gentlemen, well, you're 4 gentlemen, but you 3 gentlemen that have uniforms on, Mr. Lindskog has been involved with scouting for more than 53?
Since 1948.
Since 1948.
Not continuous, but
70 years.
So he's Mr. Boy Scout in the town of Penfield.
it was five Eagle Scouts in the family.
And 5 Eagle Scouts in the family. Thank you, Ed.
40 Willow Pond Way. Continuing updates to the Willow Pond neighborhood. I want to thank the town highway department and engineering department for a new sidewalk that was installed through private property with an easement that allows us to go more smoothly over to Wegmans without having to go over the speed bumps with the wheelchairs, which the residents were complaining about. The residents all thank the town for that. They're very appreciative of that. There's one little piece of sidewalk missing because
some of the residents go from Legacy over to the office building, and there's really no crosswalk in front of the office building to allow them to go from sidewalk to sidewalk without going down the road for about 300 feet. So that's something we haven't addressed yet. I haven't made a formal application yet.
It's not a missing sidewalk, but you're saying a crosswalk.
Well, there's a piece of sidewalk missing too.
Got it.
Yeah, there's about 8 feet. Yeah, it's a crosswalk, and there's a stub coming out of the office building, but there's no such stub on the opposite side of the street from the sidewalk on the south side. And then there's a stub in front of Legacy, but then there's no sidewalk on the other side of the street at all because that lot hasn't been developed yet.
That is correct.
Yeah, so that's a problem. And there are basically no sidewalks in the Willow Pond subdivision at all, with the exception of the east side of Willow Pond Way, which runs north and south. So most people end up walking in the road daytime or nighttime, with the exception of the piece that's in front of 40 Willow Pond Way and 25 Willow Pond Way. It's difficult at night sometimes to see all these people. They don't necessarily wear reflective clothing, which they should. And all the school kids are dropped off at the corner, and they end up all walking down the middle of the street, of course, too. You know, summer or winter, whatever the case may be. So it's a plan that probably needs to be developed or further looked at. I know the engineering department has looked at it at least once. There are some areas that can be developed with conventional sidewalks, but some of the roads, you'd have to maybe borrow 2 feet off of the front yard of some neighbors and move some mailboxes in order to get some place for people to walk, and also for kids to ride bikes and things like that. One of the things that exacerbated this problem was since Watermark took over the property, they've basically closed to the public access to their property. They didn't want people trespassing and walking by the neighbors or by the residents' windows. They objected to that. And word has gotten around the neighborhood that it's not a good thing to do walking by the neighborhood. So that puts more people back on the street again that used to walk through Legacy's yard. People still come through with their dogs, which is not appreciated because they don't necessarily always pick up after themselves. There should be a distinction between number 25 Willow Pond Way, which is the woods, which is open to the public, and number 40 Willow Pond Way, which is the Legacy building itself. There's no delineation between the two properties, so I think people just think that it all belongs to one parcel. As long as we can walk on one, why not walk on the whole thing? So that's something that has to be addressed. The other major issue is when the place was built, the drainage plan for the site plan was not fully implemented. Some of the drainage is missing. Had conversations with Mr. Costello. We convened a neighborhood meeting at Legacy involving the neighbors and Legacy people and residents. We had a good discussion, and some of the neighbors indicated where their deficiencies, their backyard floods because there's no way to get to the sewer, which is on Legacy property with a little berm that was supposed to have been removed, but there was trees on it at the time, so it was left. Just talked with Jim tonight. I think he's going to approach Legacy and ask if some of the residents can dig their own trenches over to get to the sewer. So there's drainage issues all over the property there that were never properly addressed when it was originally developed. And that's, of course, probably, 50, 60 years ago. But 2000, since the building was there.
It was in the mid-1970s. So 43.
Other than that, we got a great neighborhood. We just got a few problems. But we'll continue to work on them.
Okay, good. Appreciate the update.
Yeah, I think you'll continue to hear from me as long as I live there. Thank you.
Would be disappointed, I was going to say, be disappointed if we didn't, Ed.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right. We're getting close to the end here. There is still an opportunity to address the board on any matter. If you want to know when it's going to start snowing, we'll take a stab at that. If you want to know how much snowfall we expect to get, we'll take a stab at that.
How much salt's going to cost?
How much salt is going to be spread across the town? We'd be happy to address that. So you're going to have to come right up to this. I know. I know. So you know how I feel each time I come in here. I've got to be right in front of that microphone each time. So you can grab, there you go. You've got it.
What are you going to be doing about climate change? I heard you ask Congress about it.
We did. We did.
So first, could I have your name,
Thank you very
please?
much. I was going to just ask
My
that.
name is Vincent Tanous,
Could you spell your last name, Vincent?
Tannous.
Thank you.
So you're right. We did write a letter, this board did write a letter to Congress to support the climate control group. They asked us to come in. A couple of things that we've been doing on our end is that we have done a lot of work on reducing the amount of salt that we spread on our roads. We're working on our third solar project so that we don't have to buy as much electric from either coal sources and be able to use that through solar. The project that we're currently working on, when it's completed, it will power the equivalent of 300 homes in the town of Penfield. We're going to use that for our building here at the town hall, the community center, and our highway department. So that's one thing that we're working on, and we're looking to make some improvements to our cars and our fleets, not our big trucks, but some of our cars in our fleet to have them as electric vehicles, and looking to get our first electric vehicle in 2019. So again, there are a number of other things that we're doing. We have an Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee, and that group meets on a regular basis to make recommendations to the town board on things we could be doing better or different. Could be things like recycling, could be things like additional solar projects to help reduce that carbon footprint. Encouraging folks to carpool so there's not as many vehicle trips, because it seems like a lot of people, you have multiple members of the family coming to an event driving multiple vehicles, so we're encouraging folks to try to carpool to help some of that activity as well.
There's a lot of small things, I think, too, that we do. We're the first town to have an electric car charging station. And also, Supervisor LaFountain mentioned the Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee. When he became supervisor in 2010, that was one of his first priorities, was to create that committee, and they offer us recommendations on ways that we can, as a town, improve our sustainability and address environmental concerns. So that's very helpful. But small things that we do as well, we mentioned in terms of carpooling. Shadow Pines just opened up for public use, and made sure there's a bike rack there. So just things like that can also be done. Small things and big things can be done to address some of those concerns.
We're also in the process right now of updating the comprehensive plan for the town of Penfield, and there is a group of residents that meets twice a month or once a month now over the next year and a half, and they are also discussing sustainability and renewable energy as a key focus moving forward over the next 10 years.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What else do you think we could be doing?
Make sure, like, if people are, like, littering and stuff, like, they could have tickets passed out.
Okay. Maybe have more containers around in some key places that not only collect the litter, but also collect recyclables. Do some things like that. You will notice right there on the wall, right by the light switches, those are new this week. Those are some new posters that came out of the County of Monroe. And we had a meeting with all the supervisors in Monroe County at our Supervisors Association a couple of weeks ago. And the county came in and talked a little bit about what they're doing to encourage more recycling across the county. And these are some of their newest posters. So we just recently printed those up and put those up, and we're going to be expanding that to other locations across the town, at our community center, at our DPW, and more spots here at the town hall. And as part of the education process to hopefully get folks to understand what goes to the landfill, so that we minimize what goes to the landfill, and what are those things that we can recycle, because that's very important. If we can minimize those things that are going to the landfill, that helps that whole effort of recycling it. Thanks.
A great trip for scouts is to go see the Echo Park, which is a collaboration between the County of Monroe and Waste Management. It's over by the airport, and it's a big production line of recycling, and you can take your old TVs, your old propane tanks, you name it, and they have, right on the county website is a link to Echo Park, and it's a really neat place to go and just see this huge operation. Household hazardous waste can go there, your empty paint cans, anything that you can think of that you can't put maybe in your recycle bin, but you want to get rid of, you can just take it there, and you basically drive through, and they have sections, and you just drive and drop off what you want to drop off, and it stays out of the landfill. So that might be something you'd want to consider asking your troop if they're interested in going out there. It's a neat place to check out.
And we can help. We could help set up a special tour for you if you'd like to do that. And then they would be happy to talk to your scout troop about some of the things that they're doing, and some of the different waste streams that they're trying to take out of going to the landfill and getting to a better home via recycling. Okay?
Good question.
Other questions?
About like the Echo thing, well, how not much people know about it probably, how like we get the word out.
So if you go onto our website, on some regular basis, we put information up about that facility. You'll see little postcards that are handed out. So if you go into our rotunda, right out here in the circle, you'll see a basket that has those cards, and they're the most updated cards. So they tell you everything that they accept or don't accept. When we had our fall recycling event here a few weeks ago, we handed those out to everyone that came to encourage them that not only to recycle at home, but if they have things that do not go, as Councilwoman Metzler said, that will not go into your blue box, there's an outlet to take it there by going over to Eco Park and dropping that information off. So it could be prescription drugs or empty prescription drug bottles. Even though they're plastic, they don't want them in the recycling to contaminate, but they'll take them and recycle them properly. Anything to do with paints, paint thinners, pesticides, any type of medicines that you want to get rid of, bulk styrofoam, bulk plastic, cardboard, electronics, shredded paper, just about everything you can imagine.
Okay, that's all I wanted to ask.
All right, thanks.
Good
And
question.
thanks for coming in. Can I ask what grade you're in?
I'm in 7th grade.
Very good. Do you go to Bay Trail?
Yes.
Very good. Things are going well this year?
Yeah, pretty good.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. All right, keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other scouts that'd like to jump up and
He's a tough act to follow.
he is a tough act to follow. Come right up. That go in the right container? Very good.
Yeah,
So you know the drill. The town clerk is going to say, what's your name?
Please?
oh, my name's Thomas Tanous.
Thomas.
Tanous.
Thank you.
Okay, so I had a
I'm going to
question
take a
about-
guess that it's his brother that was up before Amy.
Yeah,
So go ahead, Thomas.
I heard that we just recently purchased Shadow Pines,
We did.
and I have a question, like, what are we going to build there instead of the golf course?
Sure, that's a great question. So we currently have a committee that this board appointed of residents, some residents that live around Shadow Pines, and a number of residents live across the town. And one of the things that we've asked them to do is come back with some recommendations. That piece of property is 212 acres in size. 206 acres of it is open land, and about 6 acres is the Clark House and the buildings that go with that. And we've asked that committee to start to brainstorm ideas. There's going to be a meeting next Tuesday right here in this room that's going to be a public information meeting, and everyone and anyone can come and throw out their ideas about what they would like to see, whether it be walking trails, or whether they'd like to see a community center, whether they'd like to see sledding hills, they'd like to see just about anything that you can imagine. That committee will take all of those thoughts, ideas, recommendations, and then they're going to come back to the town board at the end of the first quarter of 2019 with some recommendations, and then this board will then sit down and start to flush out what might happen in that area. As you can imagine, because of the size of the property, and then depending upon what the recommendations are, it could take a number of years in order to build something out, because we'll have to identify what it is, where do we get the money to do it, and then put plans together and things like that. But that's the current plan. Until then, the front nine, what is known as the front nine, is open for walking, hiking, and here very shortly, snowshoeing and cross-country skiing. And our hope is that by the end of the year, the back nine will be open once we get the trees that might be dangerous taken care of and addressed, and our goal is to get that taken care of here over the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, so that was it.
That was it?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for coming in, Thomas. So I have to ask, I asked your brother a question, so I have to ask you, I'm not going to let you off that easy. You knew that. So what grade are you in?
8th grade.
Very good. So if I track your progress to attain the rank of Eagle, what am I looking at? Is that something that you're hoping to have done over the next year, the next couple of years?
Well, my plan is to get Eagle at like the age of 16, because
Okay.
beyond then I'm going to be like a lot busy with my life.
Okay.
This part of the time I'm going to try my hardest to get to like star and life rank, so I can get to Eagle in like the next 2 years or so.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
I'm not trying to like push it or anything, but just like sit on it for a little bit and then finish it off.
So as a parent, I have to give you some parently wisdom, and that is that one, I hope I get invited to your court of honor. And number two, I hope that you're not finishing your Eagle project 2 or 3 days before your 18th birthday, and you're stressed out, and mom and dad is stressed out. So it sounds like you've got a plan to move in a good direction, and I would just encourage you to stick to your plan, because becoming an Eagle very important, and something that will serve you very well your entire life, not only in school but also in your professional career. Okay?
Okay.
I will get an invitation.
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks for your time, Thomas. All right. Is there anyone else? There's some pressure here. The two brothers were there and all over it. Did a great job. So even before you, I'll let you introduce yourself first.
My name's Joe Tanous.
All right, Joe, and I'm going to do this in reverse. I'm going to ask you, what grade are you in?
I'm a sophomore at Penfield High School.
Very good, congratulations. And where do you stand as you're working towards your Eagle?
I'm 1 rank away.
Congratulations. And your goal is that you'll complete that over the next year and a half?
Yeah.
Very good. Look forward to that. I'll get an invitation to the Court of Honor.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. So the floor is yours. What question or questions do you have?
About the Shadow Pines thing, why were all those pine trees cut down?
That's a great question. So one of the things that we found is that those pines, like you'll see, and I'll ask you to think about this and pay attention to it as you're driving through town. Our pines are seeing a lot of disease, not only in Penfield, but across this region. And if you take a look, there's a lot of pine trees in different people's yards. I've seen more pine trees cut down this year than I have ever in on different properties, and a number of properties actually on our street. And we went in and we did an evaluation, and there were a lot of diseased, dying, or dead trees. And it seemed on a regular basis, whenever we had a heavy wind, they were coming across the road, taking down some wires. So we went in to be proactive to take them down. And if you take a look at the trees that are left, you can almost see them. They've really started to grow and take off because they haven't been sheltered by either some of the shade or, just some of the other trees that might be covering them up. And they seem to be doing well. So that was something that we don't like taking trees down for the sake of taking them down. But we just wanted to make sure the property was safe overall. And we'll do the same thing across the street. We'll keep those trees that are good, healthy trees, and we'll take down those that are having some problems.
All right, this sounds okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Oh, good. Good. All right. Anything else?
No, that's it, I think.
All right. Well, congratulations. Good luck on continuing a good, successful sophomore year. Look forward to that Court of Honor. It's going to be I'm looking forward to like a 1, 2, 3. 1 year, you.
So is
and then-
Mom.
So we're looking forward to it. Thanks for coming in tonight and spending some time with us. And good luck in the rest of this school year.
All right, thank you.
All right. Be well.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks. All right. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, seeing no other input for the board and no other business to come before the board, the November 7th, 2018 legislative session of the town board stands adjourned at 8:48 p.m. Thank you to everyone that participated, especially Troop 260. You guys must make up about half that troop. And thank you to everyone else that participated. Thank you to Penfield TV. Have a great night.